So music, I really didn't have much of a choice to not be involved with. My mom's side of the family was all involved with church choirs and played piano, and grandfather was a choir director for decades. And my dad also played music as well. He played guitar and sang, and really just started playing as long as I can remember. I remember playing when I was really little, but I don't really remember the first time I played. So I had to be probably 5 years old or so when I started, and just really fell in love with it and had such a supportive household that, wanted me to be interested in music. So um, started guitar at about five, started piano lessons, maybe 10 years old, picked up drums on my own, just really any instrument I could get my hands on. I tried to play, and for the most part had pretty good luck with anything I tried. Um, so yeah, my role as a CWC is really all about helping members in our community really thrive and be able to access healthy food and be healthy and active. And um, I really think my passion for that also is kind of tied to my childhood. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was in second grade. And looking back, I've always been very aware of how lucky I was to have a family again that supported me and was able to get me the education, the treatment, anything I needed to manage my disease I had. And so I really just thought about how fortunate I was and how sad it was that some kids that might not have a good family life or the resources to take care of their disease, or, they can't afford insulin or test strips or whatever it may be. So I think that gratitude for realizing how big my environment shaped my success in life really made me want to give back to the community and see that our community can lift people up, and negative parts of our community can hold people down when it comes to poverty and access to healthy food or healthcare, whatever it may be. So I think that's really what made me interested in public health and trying to help people in the community. So for my day job, I went to, well, actually, it's funny, they were intermingled for a little bit, but I originally went to Middle Tennessee State for music production, and quickly found out that industry in terms of music production was quickly evolving and shrinking, really. So I transferred to USI and studied advertising and public relations, got my bachelor's there, worked with a tobacco control coalition for a couple years to work on smoke-free air policies and cessation efforts to help people quit smoking, and then got my master's in public service administration at UE. But really, my role and public health in general, there's a lot of backgrounds you can have. I work with food and access to healthy food, but I have no nutrition training at all. On the other hand, my coworker is a registered dietitian, and she has a extensive nutrition background. So definitely a myriad of degrees can get you in a public health role. In terms of music qualifications, I think, it's definitely true to be really good at something you have to practice a lot. But if you really love it, that's not a problem. I mean, I remember as a kid playing for hours and hours guitar, and I was just wanted to consume as much as I could. So really just a lot of practice. And I think the people you play with also have a big impact as a musician. Are you able to challenge yourself and learn new things, or are you playing with people that are not as good as you and you're not really being challenged or exposed to new ways to play, or ways to get better? So, with Purdue Extension, really we do a ton of work with community organizations, because really that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to look at what are the strengths and capacity that we have in our community. How do we improve them? How do we connect to organizations that might be able to offer a new program to help people better manage their SNAP funds or their access to food? So it's really just really different. That's a good thing about public health in this type of role. Um, there's really kind of two sides of public health. direct education and policy work, which is I do the latter. So with policy work, it's always different. You really have to get creative because there's always going to be obstacles as to why this initiative you're working on can't work. There's always challenges, and I definitely enjoy that aspect of it. So as I said, working with the community, finding out what are the needs. There's a lot of grant writing to try to fund these things. And really, it's just a ton of interpersonal interactions, whether it's organizations or community members or businesses, whatever that may be. And in terms of music, my life now has changed a little bit with COVID and being a father. I have slowed down playing a little bit, but really all throughout my 20s, I worked full time and would play music on the weekends. I would even play some shows through the week. It was exhausting, but you know, when you don't have a family or a wife, you definitely have more free time and can do that. But I think what's interesting about music that is often not really communicated to young people is they create this false dichotomy that you're either a bum musician that makes no money or you're world famous and you're a millionaire. And there's a great scope of in between those two things. And that's what I really hope the message I can get from this interview is that if you're a skilled musician, you can make really good money. You don't have to be signed to a record label. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to do this and that. There's a lot of avenues to play music and make money and still have a day job, still go to college. So some of those are, you know, my early years, I played in a lot of bars and whatnot. And you youngsters will have to wait until you're 21 or 18 to play. I don't exactly remember what the rules were back then, but that's a lucrative place. That's a lot of fun. You get to play for crowds of people, and sometimes they really enjoy it. Sometimes they don't care at all, but you're getting paid either way. More recently, I've played less bars and done more country clubs, golf courses, weddings. And I'm going to say this is going to be hard to say. The biggest thing about music is you have to know if you have it and know if you don't have it, because a ton of people play. And I'm speaking strictly as a professional musician in this context. It's fun to play with your friends and jam and play all you want, but if you truly want to be able to make good money and have a career or a part-time career, you have to know if you're good or not. And I don't really know a way for people to get that to click, but you kind of have it or you don't, I think. And obviously, you know, practice is a huge part of it, and people can get better. But for example, my brother, we've got the same genes. We learned to play guitar from the same dad, grew up in the same household, but he just can't sing a lick. He can't really sing in key. There's no amount of practice that could really change that. Me, on the other hand, you know, singing is something that came pretty easy to me. So, and again, I don't mean to sound mean or negative, but that's a big thing. A lot of people think they have it and try and try. And if you don't have a marketable set of skills, that's a nice way to say it, then all of these avenues may not be available to you. But weddings, country clubs, I mean, parties, birthday parties. What's really interesting too, that's often not talked about, is the way the music business is changing a lot is people are writing songs and selling these songs. And that's something I'm glad I just thought of, because a lot of the songs that you hear on modern radio, pop music, country music, those songs are written by other people and then sold to these artists. So I've actually been paid to record music that someone else wrote that wasn't necessarily a good singer or musician. So they hired me to record their song, and then they tried to sell their song to a major artist. So there's a lot of interesting things like that. So maybe you're a great writer, you're great at writing lyrics, but you're not a great singer, or you can come up with a basic song, but you're not a great guitarist. Again, that's a niche career within the music industry that people don't, and people make tons and tons of money doing that. You know, if you write one hit and sell it to a superstar, you're going to get paid royalties until the day you die. So um, another thing I've done that's similar to that is people have hired me to write and record songs for them. You know, I've written a song for a girl that was turning 16. I mean, it was challenging, really. That's one of the harder things I've done, to not make that weird. But um, I've been hired by companies to write commercial songs for commercials. I've done a lot of work for Victoria National Golf Course. I've done about 4 songs where they said, we want a song for our summer campaign. So like I said, it's a really diverse field. You know, when you put in the time when you're young, if you're good and have a marketable skill. Another thing that I think has gotten me further along than some of my musicians that I know is you kind of have to look the part. If you are going to go to a wedding or play at a country club or sell yourself to a business, that traditional musician look, and this is part of the stereotype of, you know, long hair and grungy clothing and you haven't showered in a week. And these are all stereotypes, but some musicians are like that. That's part of it too. You kind of have to look at it like a job, like a career. How are you selling yourself? You know, you wouldn't show up for a job interview looking like that. So in the same sense, somebody doesn't want to hire you for their wedding if you look sloppy and, you know, just not coming with your best foot forward. So I know that was a really long answer, but the day-to-day parts of a musician, they're really different. And there's a lot of avenues from just performing, being paid for that, to commercial work. And, you know, you can make it and become famous. That's what's really, it's kind of a double-edged sword for the industry, because musicians have so many ways to share their music. The old record label, you know, the only way to make it is to get a record deal. That's just not the case anymore. But that has caused the music industry to shrink, but it has empowered individual musicians because they don't necessarily need a record deal or someone to record their music. So there's a ton of variety of what you can do if you are an accomplished musician and want to make a career out of it. I would say with my role with Purdue Extension, it's just always changing. Some of the projects we work on for a long time, but at the same time, there's little things that come up. For example, we worked on a program called Nourish, which is a program that allows people to buy really great quality food at a wholesale price without buying a ton of quantity. So we worked for over a year on that project, have launched it. And even since then, that what we thought was going to happen hasn't necessarily happened. And we're still changing direction. So it's just interesting to see where things go. And then obviously when you see your programs come into fruition and see the impact and the way that you've helped people, that's just a great feeling. With music, there's a lot of special feelings with that. I mean, obviously playing to a large group of people that really like what you're doing is really fun. But on the other hand, there have been times when I've had to look at it as a job. You know, I'm at a wedding reception. Nobody really cares what I'm doing, but they want someone to play music. So I'm stuffed in a corner and nobody really cares or is listening, but that's part of it, but you're getting paid well. So another part of musician, that field that I really love is recording music. When you write a song and get in a studio and start recording, and you have what you want it to sound like in your head, and then you're just experimenting to make it a reality. It's really fun. And then when you really nail it, it's just so awesome. You just feel so good when you get that sound that you want and come up with a great song. I would say as a community wellness coordinator, it's just there's always constant challenges of there's never enough funding to do everything you want to do. And I think that's with a ton of jobs. You know, you could say that. So it's not necessarily specific to my job. Another thing would just be, not everybody really understands the situation, and unless you've experienced food insecurity or lived in a neighborhood where you don't have a grocery store, or you do have a gas station that sells milk, but it's $4 a gallon instead of $1.25 a gallon in a nicer neighborhood. Unless you have lived that or work in that field, a lot of people just don't get it. And so it's hard to see such a dire problem that families are facing and our communities facing, but a large amount of people in our community are unaware of it. So it's just kind of like, wow, if people only knew what families are facing, we'd have a lot more help and a lot more resources to solve the problem. With music, I mean, the old thing of writer's block is terrible when you have a song that you really like, but you just can't finish it or can't think of the words, or, and then just playing music and kind of those settings. A lot of times it doesn't bother me, but sometimes when you're just shocked that people can walk by somebody kind of, and it sounds cheesy, but like pouring their heart out, playing this music, and they're just like, I'm not even going to listen. I'm not going to look. I'm not going to listen. That's to me just always surprising. If I'm at a cocktail hour or at a bar, I don't expect people to be quiet and just watch me all night, because I get like I'm part of the atmosphere. I'm part of the night. I'm not the night. But some people are just so oblivious to someone performing that it's just kind of just, wow, like, I don't know. And maybe that's just because I'm a musician, that someone playing music in front of me gets me interested, or at least enough to notice them. Public health, there's so many fields. The constant with public health is, you need to care about your community. You need to care about helping people, because that's what you're doing. You're seeing a situation and thinking, how can we make it better? And that's my role. If you're doing disease control or at a health department, you have a very different set of circumstances and whatnot. But public health is just too broad even to probably mention all the avenues you could go. With public health, there's always new research about what are the best ways to accomplish our goals. We do some work with schools and kids, and Purdue University develops their own curriculum of a program that can teach young kids about healthy eating. So the continuing ed is very important, because with any topic, the information changes. We know more, we learn more, we figure out better ways to do things. So I think that's part of it. But also with my role, we have to stay in tune with what are the needs of our community. We are frequently trying to survey different people to see, have what we've done in the past worked? Has it made the situation better? Is this even a problem anymore? What should we be working on? So really keeping your ear to the ground and finding out what is the problem in a community, or what are people's struggles to eating healthier or providing food for their family. And with a musician, it's easy to get complacent and not keep practicing. But, when you stop practicing and stop challenging yourself, you really stop growing. There's a famous saying of musicians always hit a wall. They get good, they get comfortable at what they're doing, and they stop evolving, and they're just where they are. So, that can take some of the fun out of it. Something I've struggled with a little bit with some of that complacency as a musician is, performing. A typical show might be 3 hours. I'll play for 45 minutes, take a 15-minute break, do that again for 3 sets. And for years, I've played maybe the same 60 songs, not the same exact songs every night, the same order, but sometimes it's easy to be like, I'm not going to learn a new song to play at this next show. And so maybe you've seen me 3 months ago, and 75% of the songs you heard me play, I've already played before. So that's something about staying fresh fresh for your audience and fresh for yourself. So you're not sitting there thinking, oh, I'm just working. This is a job. I'm playing music and I'm not into it, because it's hard to see a musician and say, well, I can tell he's into it or he's not into it. But when you're the one playing, there's nights where I'm not thinking about music at all. I'm playing and singing, and I might even be watching a game on a TV screen in a bar. Like, there's also nights where I'm very into it and very vested and really engaged. But part of that is just keeping your set list and your songs fresh. I would say one of a fond memory of playing music is when I was younger. I was maybe a senior in high school, and I was playing in a band at a University of Evansville Battle of the Bands that we ended up winning. And I just remember thinking it was the coolest thing ever, because it was a pretty big crowd. And I would say, though, what makes it a great show is just when the people appreciate what you're doing, they like what you're doing, and they're kind of engaging with you. That's always fun. I mean, when people, like I said, are just not even giving you a glance and you might as well not even be there, that's not a ton of fun. But when people are really into it, dancing and singing along, those always make for fun shows. I probably wanted to be a musician, I would say. I had a lot of weird, I don't know about at age 5, but I know as a young kid, I wanted to be, for some reason, not that there's anything wrong with this career, but it was just a random thing for a young kid to want. I always wanted to be a car salesman. I wanted to be a marriage counselor once, but yeah, music, I always had high hopes for music. So that was probably a constant. In terms of public health, the biggest thing, I mean, obviously, besides, meeting your education requirements, if you want to be a public health, you need to, you don't have to have an MPH or a Master of Public Health, but, you got to have a college degree and all that. But the biggest thing for me was when I was in college, I was really looking to network and do internships. And really, my whole start in public health was because of an internship that turned into a part-time job, that turned into a full-time job, that turned into a director of a nonprofit. So that's a huge thing. Internships, I saw them, networking and internships, as important as the grades, because, you might have a 4.0 at the end of your senior year, but if you don't have a foot in the door, any contacts in your field in the city you work, then good luck finding a job, because it's tough out there. So that would be my biggest advice, is just get involved, volunteer with groups, join a board of a nonprofit if you can, if they'll have you, work for free, intern. Some internships are paid, but that would be the biggest thing while you're in college. Just be thinking about, where am I going to go when I graduate? Who am I going to call and say, hey, I'm out of school, do you have anything available? So that's a huge thing. With music, I just think it's practice, practice, practice. It's very boring advice, but as I said, all the things that I talked about are not possible if you don't have a skill set, if you don't have talent, and that's important. And just be open to the different options of music. You don't have to, and totally honest here, I wanted to be a famous musician when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. It really wasn't until I was done with college and starting to work that I was like, it's probably not going to happen, for, a few reasons. But I really got more interested in the job aspect of it, of, what are all the different ways I can make money playing music? And there's a lot of them, when you do have that marketable skill set. So just be open, keep your ears open, practice, and don't reduce it to something as simple as, I'm either going to be playing in my basement or playing at the Super Bowl halftime show, because you're not probably going to be playing at the Super Bowl halftime show. And if that's your goal, you shouldn't be disappointed if you don't reach that, because tons and tons of musicians that have full-time jobs as a musician that make really good money, that have a lot of fun playing, are doing a mixture of all the things that we've kind of talked about today.